Shalom. I want to give all praises to Yahawah, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Ha, Racha, Chodash, Ma'amah. Double honors to the elder apostles and the elders of GMS. Double honors to my elder, Yahawah Ban Yasharallah of this camp here in Jacksonville, Florida, which is the Lions Den camp. Salutations to the sincere Akim pushing his truth and sincerity around the four corners of this earth. I'm the call Harab Ban Yasharallah from the Lions Den camp. And today I'll be coming out with a lesson. The title of this lesson is Yahawah is Faithful, because time and time again the Lord has showed his faithfulness to his people, especially to his prophets, his men, such as Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Abraham, Habakkuk, just to name a few, and Daniel as well. And I'll be coming out of Bell and the Dragon. This was inspired, by a lesson that my elder was doing about Daniel being in the lion's den, and I was listening to the lesson, and what I would say, what I zeroed in on is that the Lord was faithful unto Daniel, just like Daniel was being faithful to him. Well, the Lord was faithful unto Daniel when it came time for Daniel to go into the lion's den. The elder said that Daniel was in the lion's den at least twice. If I'm not mistaken. Well, this is one of those times in the Apocrypha and Bell and the Dragon that Daniel was put into the lion's den. But without further ado, I'm going to start off at verse 16 of Bell and the Dragon. But before that, I'm going to just give you an overall synopsis and a view of the first 15 verses, because King Astyages, and his people, they were worshiping Baal, basically a false god. And the king, was talking to Daniel, and the king was thinking that, the Baal was eating and drinking and all this other stuff like this, eating the food that was being put up there on a regular daily basis. But what the king did not know is that the priests, the wicked priests, were lying to him and then coming in at night with their wives and their children, and eating all the food. And then, the king, will go in the next day and see that the food is gone, and then was thinking that Baal, was eating the food, but Baal was a false god. It was just brass and clay. It didn't eat, it didn't drink anything. But because Daniel was in a position of we'll say a position of power, he opted to prove to the king Astyages that Baal, their idol, were not eating or drinking anything. So it came to a point to when the king was like, look, he told his priest, was like, look, if you don't show me or let me know what's going on, I'm put you to death. And if Baal is eating, then Daniel will die. But if Baal is not eating, I'm gonna put you to death. And that's basically what he said to him. So out of the presence of the priest, and it was just only in the presence of King Astyages, Daniel, he commanded his servant to bring ashes and spread them around on the floor, to prove to the King Astyages that Baal didn't eat nothing. So when that happened, Daniel did that. The king put the signet on the door, or the seal, that nobody enter in. But see, the reason why the priests took little heed of it, because they knew they had a secret door, to come in and eat the food. So that's what they were doing. It was coming in at night and eating the food. So the next day, when the king went in and he opened the doors of the temple or whatever, he was like, yeah, see, Baal does eat. And Daniel was like, look down on the floor. And the king saw footprints. And this is what happened. But again, I'm going to start at verse 16. It says, and in the morning the king arose, and Daniel with him, and the king said, Daniel, are the seals whole? And he said, yeah. He said, yea, O king, they be whole. And as soon as he had opened the door, the king looked upon the table and cried with a loud voice, Great art thou, O Baal, and with thee is no deceit at all. Then Daniel laughed and held the king that he should not go in, and said, Behold, now the pavement, and mark well whose footsteps these are. So when that happened, the king was like, oh, ain't, he thought Baal was alive and everything was good. But Daniel laughed. He was like, nah, player, look down at the ground, and tell me what you see, basically. Verse 20, and the king said, I see footsteps of men, women, and children. And then the king was angry. So when the king looked down, the king was like, oh, I see footsteps of men, women, and children. So the king was mad. Verse 21, and took the priests with their wives and children, who showed him the private doors, or they say private, but the private doors, where they came in and consumed such things as were upon the table. So the king was mad. King Astyages was mad. He grabbed the priests up, and they showed him the secret entrance of when they was coming in and out eating the food. Verse 22. Therefore the king slew them and delivered Baal into Daniel's power, who destroyed him and his temple. And this right here is a point on Daniel being faithful to Yahweh. You gotta think, Daniel prayed to Yahweh 3 times a day. So because Daniel was in the power position, the king gave Daniel the power, and he destroyed the false idol. And then verse 23, and in that same place there was a great dragon, which they of Babylon worship. So in that same spot there was a great dragon, so they were still worshiping the idol. Verse 24, and the king said unto Daniel, Wilt thou also say that this is of brass? Lo, he liveth, he eateth and drinketh. Thou canst not say that he is no living God, therefore worship him. So right in that same spot, the king said to Daniel, he was like, so what you gonna say about this one right here? You gonna say that this is of brass? That, like, look, like what he liveth and he eateth. You ain't gonna be able to say that about this one. So he was like, you ain't gonna be able to say that about this God, so you gotta worship him. Verse 25, then Daniel said unto the king, I will worship the Lord Yahweh my power, for he is the living God. Another point in Daniel being faithful unto Yahweh. So when the king said what he said, Daniel was like, look, I'm going to worship my Lord. I'm going to worship my God, my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which is Yahweh. That's who I'm worshiping. Because why? He is the living God. According to Jeremiah chapter 10, I forget what verse, but he is the one true living God, the only living power, the only true living God. But back, verse 26. But give me leave, O king, and I shall slay this dragon without sword or staff. Then the king said, I give thee leave. So when Daniel was like, well, I'm going to worship my God, I'm going to be faithful unto my God, which is Yahweh. So, verse 26, he basically asked the king to give him leave, and I shall slay this dragon. Meaning he was like, I'm going to prove to you that this is not a living God. I'm going to slay this dragon. I ain't going to pick up not nail tap a weapon. I ain't going to pick up a sword. I ain't going to pick up a staff. I ain't going to do nothing. Give me a chance to prove my point. And that's what the king said. He proved it. Basically, the king gave Daniel a chance to prove his point. And again, verse 27, Daniel proved his point of these idols are not gods and they don't live. Salakia. Verse 27, it says, then Daniel took pitch, fat, and hair, and did seethe them together, and made lumps thereof. This he put in the dragon's mouth, and so the dragon burst in sunder. And Daniel said, lo, these are the gods you worship. So basically, then you made some kind of whatever he made and made lumps of it and stuffed it inside the dragon's mouth, and it burst. It broke to pieces. It just kabloom, you know what I'm saying? And then Daniel was like, look, these are the gods you worship. You know, basically. Verse 28. When they of Babylon heard that, they took great indignation and conspired against the king, saying, the king is become a Jew, and he hath destroyed Baal. He hath slain the dragon and put the priests to death. So the ones that was worshiping this dragon or whatever in Babylon, they took great indignation against, they got mad at what had happened. So they took indignation against, the king, got mad at the king, saying the king has become a Jew, and, he destroyed Baal, he slayed the dragon, and he had the priests put to death. Verse 29, so they came to the king and said, deliver us Daniel, or else we will destroy thee in thy house. So they went to the king. Basically, they went and threatened the king. They was like, either you going to give us Daniel, or we going to cause you some kind of problems up in here. It's going to be some furniture moving up in here if you don't deliver us Daniel. We going to destroy you and your house. That's what they told him. Verse 30, now when the king saw that they pressed him sore, being constrained, he delivered Daniel unto them. So they were putting pressure on the king. They kept harassing him, kept bothering with him, kept messing with him. And eventually he gave in, and he delivered Daniel into their hands. Verse 31, who cast him into the lion's den, where he was 6 days. So those that pressed the king sore, they were the same ones who threw Daniel into the lion's den. And he was there 6 days. And in the den there were 7 lions. Complete number. And in the den there were 7 lions. They had given them every day 2 carcasses and 2 sheep, which then were not given to them, to the intent that they might devour Daniel. So these lions were fed 2 carcasses and 2 sheep every day. But this particular instance, when they got ready to throw Daniel in there, they didn't feed him because they had the intention on having those lions devour and kill Daniel. But this is when the Lord showed his faithfulness, and this is when Yahweh showed how faithful he was unto Daniel. Verse 33. Now there was in a jury, now there was in jury a prophet called Habakkuk, who had made pottage and had broken bread in a bowl and was going into the field to bring it to the reaper. See, this is the Lord showing his faithfulness. He showed his faithfulness unto Daniel. Guess what? The Lord is going to do the same thing with us. So Habakkuk was cooking some food, or making some pottage. He broken bread, and he was going to take the food out to the ones that were working. I guess the ones that were working in the field or in the vineyard, whatever they was doing. He was going to take it to them. But, verse 34, but the angel of the Lord said unto Habakkuk, go, carry the dinner that thou hast into Babylon unto Daniel, who is in the lion's den. So while he was making the food, an angel appeared. An angel of the Lord appeared to say, hey, take this food to Daniel over there, in Babylon, because he's in the lion's den. Again, that angel appearing is a signet i.e. a sign of the Lord, of Yahweh being faithful unto his men. Verse 35, and Habakkuk said, Lord, I never saw Babylon, neither do I know where the den is. So once that was said unto him, Habakkuk was a man of the Lord. He knew. He was like, Lord, I don't know. I don't know where Babylon is at. I ain't never been to Babylon, and on top of that, I don't even know where the lion's den at in Babylon. Verse 36. Then the angel of the Lord Yahweh took him by the crown and bare him up by the hair of his head, and through vehemency of his spirit set him in Babylon over the den. So when Habakkuk made his response, the angel of the Lord took his hand and put his hand on top of his head and teleported him to Babylon. He put the crown on his head and teleported him to Babylon, to the lion's den where Daniel was at, right over the den. Verse 37, and Habakkuk cried, saying, O Daniel, Daniel, take the dinner which Yahweh hath sent thee. See, even Habakkuk knew that the Lord was being faithful unto Daniel. Habakkuk knew that the Lord was faithful. And because Habakkuk was a man of the Lord, he also knew that it was the Lord that told him to do that. So that's why it says Habakkuk cried unto Daniel, and he called Daniel names twice. And he says, take the dinner which Yahweh hath sent thee. Verse 38, and Daniel said, Thou hast remembered me, O Yahweh, neither hast thou forsaken them that keep thee and love thee. Another point. Daniel knew that the Lord is faithful. Daniel knew that Yahweh is faithful, because he said, Thou hast remembered me, O Yahweh, neither hast thou forsaken them that seek thee and love thee. So the Lord is not going to forsake those that love him and seek him. The Lord is going to be faithful unto those that love him and seek him. The Lord is faithful. Yahweh is faithful. And if you're faithful to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua, going to be faithful to you. Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua going to be faithful to you. He's not going to forsake them that seek him and love him. So Yahweh is faithful. And when you faithful unto Yahweh, he's going to be faithful right back unto you. Verse 39. So Daniel arose and did eat. And the angel of the Lord Yahweh set Habakkuk in his own place again immediately. So once Daniel got the food from Habakkuk, Habakkuk was teleported back to his spot, back to wherever he was at that time, immediately. Verse 40. Upon the 7th day the king went to bewail Daniel, and when he came to the den, he looked in, and behold, Daniel was sitting. Then cried the king with a loud voice, saying, Great art thou, O Yahweh, God of Daniel, and there is none other besides thee. So even the faithfulness of Daniel to Yahweh, to Yahweh, Daniel's faithfulness, or his faith, even made King Astyages believe in Yahweh. Made a heathen say that Yahweh is the one true living power, and there is none other. Verse 42. And he drew him out and cast those that were the cause of his destruction into the den, and they devoured in a moment before his face. So the Lord was faithful unto Daniel. And the Lord is faithful unto us that worship him and that love him and that seek him. Even the faithfulness of Yahweh even made a heathen believe, and caused the ones that had Daniel to be put into the lion's den. They end up being thrown into the lion's den. They was devoured immediately. As soon as they got in them lions ripped them to pieces. So this is just a little excerpt, one chapter of the pointing out the fact that Yahweh is faithful. He is faithful, meaning the Lord is going to keep his word. He said that he's going to protect his men. He's going to protect his elect in the times to come. He's going to lift up that standard. You can best believe that the Lord going to do exactly that, because Yahweh is faithful. Yahweh Shai is faithful unto the people of Yasher Allah and to those who love them and seek them. Well, last point. This is Sirach chapter 4, verse 28. Strive for the truth unto death, and the Lord Yahweh shall fight for thee. So you strive for the truth, meaning you stay faithful to Yahweh Yahweh Shai, and He is going to fight for you. He's going to be faithful unto you. So Yahweh is faithful. And with that, Shalom.